Hi guys, hope you're doing fine. I just wanted to give you a quick heads up on how to set up a CI/CD pipeline using Terraform as infrastructure as code and AWS as the cloud service provider. Basically, the prerequisites you need to set up before you even start setting up a pipeline is you need to have a S3 bucket which will hold your Terraform state file, and you need a DynamoDB table which basically logs your state file when you're trying to do some changes or apply your infrastructure as code, your Terraform apply. And then you need to have a Terraform backend. It's basically a backend.tf file which connects your Terraform local code, which rests in your local uh, computer from where you're doing your changes, and the AWS where your back S3 and DynamoDB, whatever resources which is hosting or supporting your Terraform pipeline, it basically connects it. And you need to initialize in the beginning first because you need to establish and create those log and state files. Basically, you don't create a state file. Once you initialize it, the state file automatically creates and establishes in your S3. And you need to save any kind of secrets you have, like your access code, any variable secrets. Some people like to keep their AWS resources in US East 1. It's basically a simple practice done because most of your HTTPS certificates, I think they rest in US East 1. Uh, I don't know the actual terminology, but basically there's some kind of packet protocol which only applies if your resource is present in US East 1. So it's generic, most available uh, with the lowest downtime. The availability zone is UST East 1, I believe. So most of, if you need to update any of these kinds of variables, you can update it into your GitHub secret. Basically, your IAM access codes, uh, uh, availability zones, whatever variables which requires, which you don't want to directly hard code into your Terraform file, you can put it in your GitHub. And Terraform apply basically applies all the changes. You can do a Terraform apply, or you can just push to your uh, main GitHub repo. Either one you could do. And basically, infra is basically how you set up your folder structure on your local Terraform file or even the GitHub. It needs to be in a certain format where you can easily read, and it's easily accessible. So when you have multiple resources to handle, it gets easier and less confusing. For example, let me show you. This is basically my uh, CI/CD pipeline which I developed. This is basically simple, telling Terraform to initialize, plan, and apply each time you push the code to the main repo. That's it. It's basically telling I have already saved my secrets on the GitHub secrets. So it's basically telling I have the AWS access key, AWS secret access key, and the ID from just pull it from the GitHub secrets. Uh, I'm repeating and reiterating again, guys. Do not hard code your secrets directly onto any kind of private, public, any kind of repository, because I have seen some case where a repo got compromised and the access code got leaked and their AWS accounts was taken by a bad actor. This has actually happened. Please be careful where you're putting in your access codes. I know it gets a bit tricky and a bit confusing while handling this access codes. You're so concentrated on resolving the issue that sometimes you leave these access codes behind anyway because you just want to make it work. But Please be careful. And basically, this is the folder structure. It has your workflow file. This is basically a workflow file telling uh, GitHub Actions what to do when you push your code to the main branch. And what infra is basically whatever resources you want to. You can do RDS, EC2, EKS, any kind of resources which you want to establish. You can just basically put them in multiple folders so that it's easier to read, maintain, update, whatever you want to do. Then you have a backend tier, which is basically a connection between the actual code and the state file and rest of the files which rest on the AWS cloud. Then later you have these are basically the outputs providers. These are TFRs and all the variables you have. See, it should be these are declaring your variables, etc. etc. If you want me to explain in deeper detail what all this folder structure and what all the files are, I can uh, make another video explaining all of those things. So basically, this is a basic. Hope you have understood how to establish a basic CI/CD pipeline. I forgot to tell you, establishing all this is free. GitHub Actions on a public repo for 1,000 requests a month. Push requests a month, action requests a month is free, I believe. AWS EC2. There are multiple resources which are free under for the first 12 months when you make a AWS account. Uh, GitHub Actions is free. Basically, you can set up and do a small scale, not a small scale. You can do a pretty big project or any kind of personal project you have for free using this specific pipeline using AWS and GitHub Actions, utilizing Terraform. You could basically use a CloudFormation template, but you would have to use the AWS native code pipeline for that establishing a CI/CD pipeline. I feel like this is much easier to do, and GitHub Actions has been kind of an industry favorite. Not that famous, but industry favorite. So if you do have any questions, you can mention in the comments, guys. I'll try my best to uh, answer them. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.